I don't think we got a chance getting recruited into the new Power Rangers movie. Hello again, Generation 1 Transformer fans. This is Sparkster1701, and here we are at week 2 of Pretender Month with the 1988 Ground Trooper for the Autobots, Groundbreaker. Groundbreaker was released in the latter part of 1988, and he would be discontinued by 1989, and we would not get a replacement for him. Groundbreaker is somewhat unique amongst the Pretenders, as he's the only one, he's the one that's of this style here that uses the giant humanoid shell that has the most loose parts. So if you're going after a loose Groundbreaker, you're definitely going to want to pay attention to the loose parts section of this video, which we'll get to in a little while. As one of the second half of the Pretenders that was released, he had the added gimmick of they put an animal face on the chest area of the shell. All three of the Autobot ones did this. So Groundbreaker, Sky High, and Splashdown all have a respective animal face on the chest plates of their armor. The Decepticon counterparts, however, lacked this. As their guys were all monsters anyways, there really isn't anything much to differentiate between the first wave and the second wave. We're going to start by taking a look at the robot himself, so we'll get the shell out of the way. This is Groundbreaker himself. And as is standard with the other Pretenders, his articulation is pretty limited. You can rotate his arms at the shoulders. They're kind of blocked by the wing that's attached to his backside, but if you remove it, you can see his arm goes all the way around. I'll put the wing back on him here. He does have a joint at his legs, so he can bring his legs up for a fancy kick. And he does have a joint at the ankles, so you can put further emphasis on his kicks. I don't hear Radio City calling for him, though. To transform Groundbreaker is a relatively simple task, which is the unfortunate part when you consider the fact that all the Pretenders like this of this same size were exactly the same. Too simple. We start by removing his gun and also the wing on his backside. And then the next thing you're going to do is rotate his arms up all the way. Make him look like he's going to surrender to us, folks. And then fold down his ankles. And then you are going to take his legs and rotate them all the way up against his chest. And we turn him over and lay him down. Then to add the final touch, reattach the wings, and then put the gun on top of that. And there's his alternate mode, which is supposedly, according to the instructions, a rocket car. I guess with a little bit of imagination and the little booster engine there on the back of the wing, I guess it's somewhat plausible, but I don't really see it getting anywhere real fast, folks. He does have little plastic wheels there on his legs, and as you can see, with minimal amounts of effort, he does roll pretty good. Gets a little out of control here, but he does roll along. He does roll on this table here relatively good. Now we've put him back into robot mode so that we can get him ready to be placed inside his Pretender shell. And of course, naturally, you have him without any of the accessories attached to him. We start by taking his arms and fold them backwards against his back. And then you fold up his ankles. I'll just lay him there for the moment. And we get his Pretender shell here. Just pop it apart. When you take Groundbreaker, lay him into the back of the shell. Then attach the connectors here at the bottom of this one into the slots on the back side of the shell, and then just bring it together carefully. Make sure it snaps together all at once like that. Help keep him together. Put his helmet on and attach his belt. The belt's got a couple of holes. You just pop them onto the tabs on the shell to secure him in. To complete the look of the shell, we add on some shoulder armor. And arm him with his rifle. Then you can take the wing and his small gun, connect them together as you had earlier for the rocket car, and then fit it into his other hand. And it becomes an extra weapon, or as it's also referred to in the lore, as a drone. Now, since it's a drone, we'll just let it sit here on the floor. And this is him in his fully decked out Pretender shell mode. And like all the Pretender shell, like all the humanoid shaped Pretender shells at the time, its articulation is limited to the arms. You can rotate the arms all the way around. And that's about it, folks. Real exciting stuff. Let's see if we can get him to hold the gun again. Hold the drone. There we go. That's better. That's a little bit better. Well, I think Soundwave holds Buzzsaw a little bit better. Sorry about the interruption there, folks. I forgot to pay the clumsiness bill this month. Anyway, as I was saying, this is the blaster base wings. It's got thin plastic. Here on the bottom, it does have two posts on it. The larger one here in the back, that would be for the shell to hold. And then there's this small one right here at the front of it. That's the part that connects into the robot. This piece was the hardest one for me to get, not due to the fact that I couldn't find it. It's when I special ordered this unit, the sender forgot to include this. And I was a few weeks waiting on it to show up in my mailbox. I think that's when the postman started to hate coming here. Alright, now moving all right along, we'll take a look at Groundbreaker's instructions. This was done in the new style that they were doing in 1988, and was especially for the Pretenders, as they had their own specialized logo. The first page of it would feature the shell, decked out, nearly complete, and then the second page would have the robot. Now, on some bilingual instructions, they would have, like some of them that I have from Canada, the English name would be on this page, and this page would have the French name. Just a little bit of trivia for you here, folks. Now, we got 2 pages of the set includes, showing you each and every part, although they have the shell just as one unit. And then down here we start on how to complete the robot mode. Even though they show the name of the robot up here, this is more how to transform him into the rocket car. Around to the opposite side, and this finishes the rocket car. And then now start figure, which is how to put him into the Pretender shell. Pretty simple stuff. Then we get a long spread down here at the bottom for putting his stickers on. Since as you can see, there was 4 to put on to the shell. And then we get into 5 for the robot. And then we get over here to the final page. Notice that it does not have the rub sign instructions because in 1988 the rub signs were phased out of the Transformer line. But they still mentioned for collecting and saving robot points, despite the fact that all the promotional mail-aways for the Transformers had expired by 1988, and they really didn't offer us any others. And then down here they talk about how to read the tech specs, since in 1988 they were still being done the old-fashioned way. Speaking of his tech specs, we got the tech spec right here. It still had the whole thing in one solid color to denote his faction. It lists him here as Autobot, and the picture here features, as it does with all the Pretenders, the shell, the robot, and the vehicle. It gives his name as Groundbreaker, and his function is Ground Trooper. And that basically means that he is a ground soldier. He is specially trained to fight on the ground. Essentially your basic soldier, but more skilled in ground warfare. And his motto is, "The first one in is the first to win." A fast-moving fighting machine. Always the first to arrive and the first to start shooting. Brash, impulsive. Acts like someone with his foot on the accelerator. Built-in thermal and geological sensors in helmet home in on enemy installations and fuel supplies. High-density outer armor emits laser beam force field that can withstand direct enemy bombardment. Equipped with state-of-the-art radar targeting electron assault rifle. Also armed with laser-guided, programmable pulse blaster that flies and functions by remote control. Rocket car has all-terrain capabilities and can reach speeds of Mach 1. Now, Mach 1 means that he basically would be flying at the speed of sound. So you'd be hearing a loud sonic boom whenever he'd go by at top speed. Coming over here to his tech specs, lay this decoder over the grid. As you can see, he looks like he's got some relatively high stats here. His strength is given as 7, his intelligence and speed are 6, his endurance is 8, his rank is 5, his courage is 10, his firepower is 8, and his skill is 7. So aside from some low intelligence and being rather low in the pecking order, he's a well above average soldier in terms of what they've got for the Autobots. Now going back to some of what it said there in his tech specs, it is mentioned in the More Than Meets the Eye guidebooks that his impulsiveness and brashness also applies to his regular life. While he's a friendly character, he tends to be brutally honest and blurts out unpleasant things that others really don't want to hear. He's not very tactful and doesn't want to waste time misdirecting people. So that adds a little bit of extra dimension to his personality. But since that makes him also rather thoughtless, that means that in combat, when he uses this approach in combat, it also means that more often than not, he gets himself into more trouble than he really should. So it's kind of a good thing then that he has the extra shielding in in the Pretender shell armor, because he's gonna need it until the others get there to help bail him out of whatever trouble he's gotten himself into. Now we get down to, what do I think of him? Groundbreaker's something of an interesting character, but a little bit too one-dimensional and flat. I mean, we all have known people that are somewhat brash and impulsive, or those that are pretty much blunt with their feelings and thoughts. I myself am one of those. So in some ways, I can relate to Groundbreaker a bit. But as the specs were kind of written rather flatly, it doesn't really give us much depth into him. The More Than Meets the Eye guides talk somewhat more about him, and at least make him more personable, but he's still almost nothing. Really don't have much to go on. And that's the biggest complaint that I have against him. As a toy, he's the same as a lot of the other Pretenders. The Pretender line, especially the first wave of Pretenders, suffered a lot from poor designs. As the robot had to be kept small to be able to fit inside the shell, that meant the vehicle modes had to be sacrificed. And also the fact that this also helped Hasbro avoid having to pay royalties to any of the other vehicle manufacturers for the likenesses of their vehicles. So from a marketing standpoint, it helps Hasbro out, but it does hurt us, the fans, since the vehicle mode is rather disappointing, and the Pretender shells are too, with the fact that they are both very limited in what you can do with them. However, I do give extra points to Groundbreaker due to the fact that he does have the added extra pieces to him. So that makes him a little bit harder to find as a complete toy, thus a bigger challenge for those of you who enjoy that sort of thing. Ranking him as a character, I'd gotta go with near the top of the bottom tier, as with very little detailed information about him, and what little we do get about Groundbreaker really doesn't tell us anything about him, other than the fact that he's a brash and thoughtless character who likes to get into battles. We really don't know anything about him, and those kind of characters are usually the first ones that wind up in trouble and probably dead before their friends can get there to help him. But we'll keep him up close to the top of the bottom tier just due to the fact that since he's got more pieces, that at least gives him something more of a feather in his cap, if that's something that you like. Otherwise, he's pretty much bottom tier character all the way. And that concludes my review of the Generation 1 Autobot Ground Trooper Groundbreaker. If you like the video, please thumbs up it here on YouTube. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button down below. Post a comment, share this video with your friends and fellow collectors. This is Sparkster1701 saying catch y'all later, and see you next week for more of Pretender Month.